So, in the world of yoga, we often think about practice. The main component of yoga, many people would say, is practice. Yoga is a practice, it's something we do. What we perhaps forget is that life is practice. If our yoga practice forms us, so do all the practices, habits, and actions in our life. And really, everything is practice if we think about it, right? So perhaps instead of thinking, how do I take yoga practice off the mat, we can think, actually, how is my whole life a practice? So if we're seeking to pursue a life of yoga, however we understand that, of union, of philosophy, seeking to live a good life, to put it simply, as the ancient Greek philosophers would say, we should really be thinking about our daily habits, how we are living, and how our participation in life is what regulates us. And so this really is a call not just to practice yoga on the mat, but to engage with practices which ignite your soul, ignite your creativity, that allow your attention to be focused, to flow, not this kind of scattering, in choosing what regulates us. What are the daily habits and practices that we engage with that regulate us, that form us, that transform us towards the good that we are trying to arrive at? So I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode and listen till the end, and I have a little surprise for you that I can't wait to share. Welcome to the Embodying Philosophy as a Way of Life podcast. I'm Floss, yoga teacher, scholar practitioner, and seeker of embodied wisdom. This podcast explores philosophy not as abstract theory, but as the practice of meaningful inquiry in relation to our lives as they are lived today. I'm so delighted you're here. Episode 2, Series 2 of the podcast. Today, we're really experiencing, technology in a way that we never have before. And there's a philosopher of the 70s called Michel Foucault, who talks about how subjects are formed. And subjects are formed, selves are formed. We are formed through our practices, through what we do and what we engage with. And so today's episode is not just me talking here. It's actually was recorded a little while ago in December of 2025, actually on New Year's Eve. And I had set up a fire and I had put loads of blankets out. And I was practicing and exploring a different way of life, of being. And so in the rest of the episode today, I'll be talking a little bit about how, with the technology we live with today, we are formed through our participation in it. So, we often struggle to sit in silence. We often struggle to not immediately go for our phone. And so really the practices of everyday life, how we're engaging in the world and technology and our modes of attention, they are what we are with, what regulates us. And so this really is a call to practice, a call not just to practice yoga on the mat, but to engage with practices which ignite your soul, ignite your creativity, that allow your attention to be focused, to flow, in choosing what regulates us with daily habits and practices that we engage with that regulate us, that form us, that transform us towards the good that we are trying to arrive at. So I've been thinking a little bit lately about the idea of comfort, the concept of comfort. Comfort and ease is something that's talked about in the yoga traditions. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that yoga asana, so physical posture, should be steady and comfortable, or that can also be translated as easeful, sweet. It signals a sense of equanimity, not being too tight or rigid or uncomfortable, but dropping down, being in a supported and comfortable seat. And comfort is also something we as human beings seek. We seek emotional comfort and safety. We seek a feeling of comfort in our nervous system. And we're often peddling the boundary between comfort and discomfort. We seek to challenge ourselves to push our comfort zone and expand our comfort zone and what we think we're capable of. but we also need to come back to the comfort which nourishes us. The importance, therefore, of the home, of the mother, of friends, of family, of these support structures in our life, which give us that sense of repetition and that sense of comfort and ease. But how do we as modern people comfort ourselves today in modern times? And something I've been considering is that so often we're using technology, and in particular our phones or iPads, as this comfort in these micro situations, waiting for the bus, out and about, or in our home. It's something we do. We do doom scrolling. We mindlessly go for our phone, and it gives us comfort. It allows our mind to kind of zone out, and our body may be fairly uncomfortable. We might not be grounded or comfortable in our body, in our physical body, but the discomfort that comes from that can be mitigated by the mind's kind of distraction and focus on the phone. So that's quite interesting. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but for a lot of people, they feel they have an addiction or a problem or feel that it's maybe goes too far, myself included. And arguably that's because it gives us that comfort. It gives us that quick fix comfort. Now, on the other hand, what might we be losing? And this is what I was also thinking today as I created this fire and this space with, you can't see it, but blankets and cushions on the floor. And I made a nice homely meal, and I'll be spending the evening reading and reflecting and journaling about my desires for the future. And as I was doing that, one thing I was thinking that while we kind of have emphasized this comfort of the mind, through the technology of the phone and the screen, this kind of quick fix of comfort, what have we lost? And perhaps we struggle now to actually create deep comfort for ourselves, deep nourishment for ourselves. And the prime example is the home, is the center of the home, the fire. For a long time, the center of the home was, like more recently, the TV, right? Families would have the TV set. They would gather around the TV as this kind of ritual. Of course, in the past, it would be the hearth, the fire, the fireplace, or further back, the fire at the center of the home, or not in a house, but in another kind of dwelling, the fire at the center, which obviously sustained where food was made, where warmth was found. And then it became the TV. And today, we've often become isolated around our own mobile devices, our individual screens. And in many ways, we need to, because the world is a bloody, busy, intense place, and our nervous systems need to regulate. But when we're regulating through the use of the phone, it's not that deep nourishment, that slowing down, that being around people or even by yourself, a fire might give you. And so I was thinking maybe while we've put like this quick fix of the phone at the center of finding comfort, we've stopped taking the time to create deep comfort in our homes and in our lives, deep rituals that ground us, but also spaces where we feel safe, where we can drop in. Now, as a yoga teacher and practitioner, my yoga practice is a space like that. And I don't practice every day, and I often find excuses. But when I drop into the stillness and breath, I land and I feel at home, and so many of the anxieties move away. This rigidity softens, this boundary between outer and inner, which is expressed as physical tension in the body, drops away. But it's not just to be found in yoga practice or meditation practice, which is not something everyone does. I mean, I think everyone would probably benefit, but there's practices in other traditions, other spiritual religious traditions, but there's also just household rituals we can have, creating spaces of nourishment, of connection, meal times, times to go inwards, to slow down, to journal. So I remember when I was recording that and I was by the fire and had all these blankets, and it just felt so wonderful and homely and really restful. And I think many of us do struggle to truly rest today. The state of our attention and our nervous system is tense, is scattered. We have this feeling that we always need to be doing and striving, and there's a million things to do. And From this perspective that we have formed through our practices, our habits, and technologies, technology, including devices, but also even the fire can be considered a technology. These form our nervous system and our posture and our mentality, and all these things are related as well. And so my invitation for you is to reflect, like, what does form you? What habits, what actions, what technologies, what behaviors, what spaces form you and through which you participate? And notice the different spaces you operate in. Do you find some activities, some practices, some ways of being make you feel calmer, more peaceful and happier, and some don't? Because it's probably the case. And when we find those practices and those spaces that really hold us and that really allow us to have this quality of attention that is so often lacking today, then we should really pursue them, I think, whether that's being in nature, whether that's being in the space of a fire. And we so often do lack these communal ritual spaces and structures today. And part of it, I think, is the phone. It's this interiorized attention. Our attention is so focused on ourselves. And what I was trying to say in this, this fireside chat, let's call it, is that when we are using our phone as the main source of regulation in our life, it's reproducing and producing a certain way of being. And it's in our posture too. It's this kind of tension, this tightness, it's a coping mechanism. And it's contracted a lot of the time. So I would love to hear if you have any spaces, places, habits, rituals, activities that really allow you to flow, allow you to access that creative energy and find the peace that you're looking for. Now, I did say I had something exciting to share at the end of this week's episode, and I do. So on June the 1st, 2026, my new 6-month program, the Practical Yoga Philosophy Immersion, is starting. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this program. It really is the kind of program that I would have loved / still love. So over 6 months, we'll be exploring a cumulative arc of yoga philosophy. So a broad range of themes that build on each other. The first month is practice and repetition. So we'll be exploring a little bit about the themes we've looked at today in this episode. So thinking about how our practices form us and what this means for how we live in the world and how we want to be. And then over the 6 months, we'll be exploring other themes, including yoga and the mind, yoga and the heart, subtle body cosmology, so the relationship between the individual body and the cosmos, and creativity, and so much more. Each month we'll have one live session, a 2-hour live session, and then there'll be ongoing support throughout the month. So think practices, prompts, mini private podcast episodes. Now, the purpose of this program is to allow a deepening of understanding into the broad traditions of yoga and yoga philosophy in a way that combines theory and practice. So you'll be learning, you'll be discovering what resonates with you, because this is incredibly important that yoga philosophy and history teaches us there is not just one path. There's many paths, and really there's an emphasis in the traditions as well on context specificity. That means that different things are suited for different people based on a variety of reasons. You'll be finding what resonates with you, and then you'll be deepening and practicing and exploring each of these themes, discovering more about yourself, peeling back the layers, but beginning to invite practices that form you into your life every day. In a way, it's about a regular practice that's going to help sustain you, that's going to help form you, that you can go to as this anchor in your life, as the hearth. It's funny that the Vedas in yoga history and philosophy, they talk about the external fire sacrifice. And in this episode, I was talking about the fire in the home, and I love a fire. But the Upanishads talk about the inner fire, and we often talk in yoga history about the transition from the outer fire of the ritual to the inner fire of the practice. And in a way, that's actually what this program is about. We're bringing the regulation and this hearth, this center into our lives, into our practice. And that in itself is a rebellion, because let me tell you, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be busy, to have excuses, but it's brave to really take ownership and to find your own center. And that's what this course is about. So I'm so excited. We start on the 1st of June, 2026. And if you want to learn more about the practical yoga philosophy immersion, have a look in the show notes below. So thank you so much for listening. And I look forward to sharing the next episode with you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.